Hi Soul Family. I'm here with a message to state that you are healing soul bloodlines, past and future. You have a huge purpose, and they want you to know how truly grateful that they are for what you've already been doing up to now, how much you've already helped your ancestors, the ones to come. They would like you to know just how truly proud of you that they truly are, because it's not been easy going through what you've gone through. You know, you've watched other family members going through the same things that you've gone through, but you've come out of the other side of it. And they're not saying that's just because you're stronger, it's because they've put stepping stones, building blocks in place for you to see all this. And because of what you went through as a child, you have become a person with discernment. You can see patterns of situations before they've even arose. So they want you to say, I release what is not mine, I forgive what came before, and I rise beyond the pattern. This isn't about, because normally we, you know, when we speak about people who've passed and gone, especially if we had such a difficult experience with them, you know, we will remind ourselves of that for a very long time. You know, a lot of us carry mother-father wounds, but what your ancestors are wanting you to know, that they were your building blocks to for you to be the one that states, you know, this ends with me, this goes no further than I. That you're rewriting what's, you know, your children's future is going to be from here on out. Like I said, I release what is not mine, I forgive what came before, and I rise beyond the pattern. This is you now, recognising all that. You've brought your children up in a completely different way. You have had a better understanding of why certain things happened the way they happened, and as you're going along on your journey, things are becoming more clearer. You feel that, you know, you have carried a lot, but all that's been for you to see why it was there, and for it to be released, for the family burden, you know, for the, as it states, the curse of the family. But it was always designed for you. Before you came, you did ask to be on this particular family, to change the course of it, to heal it, to understand, to release it. And it has been quite a tough time, but you are coming out of the other end of that now, and you'll start to feel that now. There's been a lot that's that you feel a lot lighter with now. There's a lot where you are understanding the processes of it all, and you're lovingly leaving it now, knowing that you learnt the lessons from it, and you know that each lesson that now comes up, you're ready to take on without it destroying you. You're ready to take it on knowing that, you know, there's something good that's going to come out of it, that you know, you give it to God, that you ask to be shown the clear way, that you are now, like I say, you know, you're the way shower. You've been present more in your everyday life now than you've ever been. So they want this. Okay. Let's see what they want to know. Yeah. Because now you have everything on your journey now that you wouldn't have had years ago if this had come about quite some time ago. This has been you collecting all your information, all your knowledge, all of everything that you have today, knowing that it's not all materialism, it's all knowledge and wisdom. That now you're ready to be able to help the roots of the family. You know, you're here to allow the roots. So maybe you're, like I said, now you're deciding that it's okay now that certain things, well, it's not okay that certain things have happened, and what you've received, it's okay now. You're not stating that, but what you are doing is you've got a better understanding of it, and now you're ready to release that, so it's not growing all around you and isolating you and trapping you in. You can now breathe throughout certain circumstances, and now because of that, you know, your ancestors are truly proud of you, because you've done something that your bloodline struggled to do for quite some time. Yeah, because there was a lot going on where you know, these roots, you know, the fights, the arguments between family members, but then you decided to take the path blindly and make a choice that it was going to end with you, and you know, and you've allowed what's come up, you know, the negative, everything that's come up, you are now healing that. You know, you're balancing, you're now balancing what came before. You're now holding a space, knowing with understanding that, you know, this was something that was in your family heritage, you know, something that burnt you all quite severely. You know, maybe a lot of your family member had, like I said, because a lot of us have been here before, it's what I call a witch wound, or what others call a witch wound. And that a lot of people remember past lives, or they don't remember it, but they know that something's about, you know, something they've been carrying for quite some time, a form of fear. You know, because obviously a lot of our ancestors were at the time of the witch trials and situations like that, that we have always been too scared to step forward and speak up because we're in fear of, obviously, what could happen. But you're now knowing that this is a time where you can speak comfortably. I mean, 20 years ago, you still, to come forward and say such things, you know, you'd have still been ridiculed, whereas today, it's more open and more free to be able to speak about what happened in our family line. And there was a lot of your family maybe fought a lot to do with keeping secrets within the family. Because this is what I see here. I see this where a lot of your family members, maybe not, obviously not now, I'm on about, oh, it could be now, so until I go further into this, I'm not 100% sure, but from what I see, you know, there was a lot of family members that maybe spoke up about there being a witch in their family, which caused us all then to have that wound of, you know, struggling to be able to speak to certain family members because we was worrying about how they treat us, or maybe they have been treating us a certain way. Maybe you have been the one that's been the black sheep of the family. Maybe you have been the one that was never really listened to, and you was the only one that truly was making sense. But then you had to go put yourself into isolation. You know, you put the blindfold on. You didn't want to see anymore what was going on around you, as in family-wise. You went in and did the inner work. You've learnt to balance yourself and collect all the things that you need, the knowledge, the, you know, whatever that is. Maybe you've got yourself your own little space now where you feel safe enough now to be able to come forward and speak your truth, and you've found a balance. You've gone in and you've been working on the dark side as well as the light side, because a lot of people seem to think that, you know, by only working on the light side and just spreading love is all that we need to do, but we also need to heal the inner wound of the child, the inner wound of the family. And often that comes up through listening to our own thoughts, which when we spend time alone, we tend to be able to heal those inner wounds, because we're not surrounding ourselves with noise that is stopping us from our growth. And when we tend to isolate ourselves and we're going deep, it's a very hard decision to make, but it's always been the best one. This is, like I said, this is where you grew. This is where you found your balance. This is where you knew that, you know, you have one side on this realm and one side in spirit realm. This is where your fears started to dissipate, because you knew that you was being guided. You knew that you was being shown the way. You knew that you had a purpose, you just wasn't sure what it were, and you've been living your purpose. You have been doing all the healing. You did take that chance blindfolded, you know, and now it makes more sense to you now. You know, now you will look up at the sky and talk to the sky and talk to your ancestors, and, you know, they're always there with you. The ones that are here are still on that, the ones that are still here are the ones that are still not understanding your journey, and that's okay, because you are healing those too. You know, you were the one that came here to know that you was going to be the black sheep of the family. You knew you was going to be the one that was going to be spoken about, was going to be ridiculed and laughed about, but you chose that path anyway, because you knew that you was going to be confident and strong enough within yourself anyway to be able to correct all this line, because your family line has a huge role to play on this time of earth, especially yourself. You, even if it's you alone without the rest of the family, you know, maybe you've isolated yourself from friends too, because there was a lot where you felt like you wasn't being understood, and there was a lot of arguing, and there was a lot of thoughts that was going around, and you felt it. You knew that there was talking behind your back, and there was, you know, there was mocking you and whatever that means to you. You was allowing yourself that time to heal without the outside noise of others. You chose that path because you knew that was what's going to heal you, because you've tried all your life to speak to these people and they've never understood you, they've never wanted to understand you, they've always seen everything from their own point of view. And now this is where you're protecting. You're not allowing your children to be around these people. You know, you've kept your children safe. You've made sure that they've been guarded and away from all of that, what went on, because none of them have healed from anything that happened to you when you was a child. They're all still stuck in the same mindset. They all think that they're better than everyone else, and they all believe that that they, like I said, they can only see their own way. They can't see any other way. They've not evolved from being little. And that's not saying that it's their fault, and it's something. It's just something that they never had within them to address. They didn't understand the journey that they was on and that they was meant to heal. You called in, and you started to speak your truth, and you started to this is where you know, like I say, you had the world in your hands. You now know that you can make any decision, because you're now balancing. You've learned to balance everything that you had thrown your way. You learned to see things in a different light. And like I say, you're not blaming them. You're not saying that everything that they did was wrong at all, because you can understand that you was also there at one point too, where you was in that battle probably with them. And you decided enough was enough, and it was getting all silly, and that you just didn't want to be involved in that anymore. And this is where you learn to balance yourself. This is where you learn to. But you, like I say, you also knew that it wasn't going to change, and this is why you had to find that inner balance. You had to find that peace, because, you know, the trickery was real. They could be very pleasant to your face, but then speak awfully behind your back. So this is where you knew that you had to protect your children, or your inner self. You truly found your balance, and then you was deciding on which path to go, which they've always been on the same path. It's money, this, that. They have to be a certain way. It's about what people think of them on the outside. And deep down, they're quite envious of the way that you have become, which is why all the fights have been, because you did choose that path. And maybe they wanted to choose that path. But I see something as in, when you was younger, you maybe had a sibling who did candle work and who was really against you. And this is either a sibling or this is a cousin. I'm not clarification. This is either a sibling or a cousin that they was doing candle magic against you, because I'm not sure. I'm not going to say jealousy, but there was something there where they genuinely really hated you, and they generally didn't want you around. And maybe they saw the light that you had as a child. Maybe you was very gifted as a child, and maybe then you lost your parents when you was younger too. Because this is massively coming up. And then from there, you was always the outsider. No matter what you did, what you amounted to, what you'd done, anything, it was always that you was the one that was always singled out. Maybe they always had gatherings, maybe they did things together and you always felt like you was the odd one out. But Divine wants me to show you this, that it was always meant to be that way. They didn't know any better. Well, they do know better, but to them, they don't think that they're doing anything wrong. But like I say, I see this massive, something to do with candlelight. And I'm speaking over you in some way. Maybe they did want to stop you, maybe they didn't want your light to come through, maybe they wanted your light and they could see that from such an early age, but you couldn't. But now you've had the messages, you've had the clarification, you do know now that this makes sense. And it's not something that you had in your mind, and this is the reason that you knew all the trickery was real. You knew that you was always looking behind your shoulder. You were always looking behind to see if, like I say, you always felt that what they was doing was wrong towards you. You learn to balance that. You learn to speak to your ancestors, to God. You learn to call in your guides and your angels. Because you knew that you had to protect your children, because you didn't want your children to be around it. Yeah, because you was singled out, and you felt like everyone was always, you left, you moved away, your home was not your home anymore. You felt such betrayal. You felt such heartache. It made you feel sad and alone. And they was always there, together, doing whatever they was doing, and it always hurt you so bad. And this is why you went off and you did what you was doing, because there was no other way. Yeah? And this is where you went from, you moved away, you filled your own cup. You went from being hurt and betrayed to making your own home, making your own life, making your emotions stable. You were sitting grounded knowing that, all the rocks that they threw at you was building your home. You got on with your life and you started to grow and you made your new little family. And all that was behind you. All the arguments, all the everything was now behind you. You didn't have to fight with these family members anymore, because they wasn't there anymore. You'd removed yourself from that situation. You became to where you didn't see anymore that what they was doing behind your back anymore, because you was balancing yourself out and you was working on yourself. And you was creating your own little family, and you became strong. And that's when your ancestors were so proud of you for all that you went through. Yeah. That you got the clarity that you needed. You balanced both sides. You became masculine and feminine. About 97% of the population is either living in masculine or living in feminine. But you learned to be able to balance both sides, so you could see the logic on both ends. This is where you took control and you moved forward with your knowing of what you knew. This is where you you was protecting yourself, you was guarded, and maybe for a time you was angry with these people, maybe for a time that you spoke about these people in a negative way at some point. Maybe you was chastising, maybe you was, but you wanted to move away from all this trickery, like I said, because you wanted to protect your children. You didn't want your children around all that. You became enlightened and started to see that there was more to this life than the trickery, the betrayals. You started to get yourself into nature and ground yourself and do things for yourself, which then brought you greater clarity to where you felt at peace and one with the earth. You literally were starting to get the messages from the other realms. You were starting to understand then when all this came about, because this is when you made that decision. I know all this is coming out all as, like I say, you have been in protective mode for quite some time. And like I said, this is where you was alone. And by you being alone, you started to daydream again like you did when you was a child. You started to sit and ponder. And rather than seeing the cups empty and feeling alone and feeling sad and feeling isolated, you took this as an opportunity to open yourself up, to become creative, to want to learn more. In that time is where you became enlightened, where you was birthing new ideas. And because of that, you have built yourself to a place where you feel balanced, where you feel you have everything that you could ever want. And now this energy is not there to hurt you anymore. You've left all that behind, or you are leaving all that behind. You now have decided that you are the one that is here to bring information and knowledge to others. That this is where you speak your truth and become assertive and not take. You are the one now that, like I say, you bring the truth now. You are the one that's going to bring the truth, and they are going to see what you've been doing behind the scenes. And they're still going to tell the same stories, because that's who they are. They're still going to tell the same story that you was when you was 8 to 10 years old. They're still trapped in that mindset. But eventually people will start to see that everything that they're saying is not truth, because you've been working on yourself. You know, you have had the clarity. You are writing down all the messages that you get coming through. You've been gaining wisdom to guide and help others. You have literally been the one who has made a whole change of their life. But you're not shouting it from the rooftops, you're not doing anything to belittle them, although they're still speaking ill of you. You were deciding that this story is not yours anymore because you were sick of being left out in the cold. This is where you were sick of the chastisements. They've always been told that you're a certain way and that you're, constantly always looking over your shoulder because you was never sure what was going to get said next. So you started to build your own little world. And instead of carrying all the burden now, you are building your own home. Your roots. You're building new roots. And this is what's causing you now to feel truly grounded, truly safe, truly in the happiest place to be able to, because you're creating a new life. You've learnt to balance everything and you've got everything that you need. Everything. You're the magician now in your life. And this is why the universe is going to reward you. Because you've mothered yourself, you've cared for yourself, you've cared for your ancestors, you've not gone around belittling anybody, you've been listening to spirit, you've been putting in the work every day, you've been doing nothing but spreading pure love to everyone that you meet along your journey. And this is why you started to be able to birth new creations. This is why that you can now sit pretty in the new empire that you're about to receive. Because you've learnt to balance yourself. And the criticism and the only built you stronger. All the storms that they threw, you collected and you built yourself a home. You found your inner strength, your inner wisdom. You learnt to listen to guides and know that everything was about to be perfectly beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. You've been working on your craft. You're starting to see now that this was all designed this way, that you have had all this time now to be able to grow your own life, to be able to put all this into because you are an amazing person and you're not what everyone else said that you are, and now you don't even care either way. And you're going to be surrounded by all the ones that do care. You are going to be surrounded by people who love you, and the Wheel of Fortune's coming in now because it's time, because like I say, you have been creating your own little world and you have been ignorant to everything that's been going on around you, but you've still spread the love. You still wish them a better life. You still hoped and prayed every single day that they would find peace in themselves, and you never once ridiculed them and you never once spoke badly of them. You've been building yourself up for around 6 to 10 years. You have been doing all the inner healing. You've been doing all the... Yeah, they want you to trust life. 22 adds to 4. You're becoming the master builder of your universe. You're becoming the one now that's becoming creative and inspired, and knowing that the knowledge that you've received now is what is building your destiny. Say yes. Expand through the extremes. That's what you've done. You had expanded throughout the extremes. This was not designed to destroy you. This was designed for you to build yourself through all the heartache, compassion, devotion, humility, humanity and grace. This is why, you see, protection, boundaries, clear communication. Remember your roots, perspective, trust the weavings. So yeah, this is trusting the weavings. This is knowing that all the hard work and the hard effort that you've put into yourself is now what's going to give you the rewards that you deserved all along. Sorry, one sec. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, this is where, you know, you've healed the ancestors because you have been remembering your roots. You have been remembering why you came here. It's been making sense the more and more that you've gone through. And now you're building, like I say, you are now going to be building a future now that your children are going to be truly looked after by, because, you know, there's been a couple of generations where, you know, your family line was meant to leave some form of inheritance, but there hasn't been any for whatever reason that has been. You are going to be the one that passes down this knowledge, this wisdom, and leave your family with what they should have been left with all along. This is you building a new empire for your family. You're going to leave a legacy. Thank you. Yeah. It's come out twice. Because you are the one that came to reignite the souls of your lineage. You are the one that's going to show how being different is what's needed, rather than everybody following the suit. Now this has a completely different meaning in this book, so I'm going to read from the book what they want you to know. I love this start, I absolutely love it. My hands are so dry. Okay. I need to stop, wait and look around me before proceeding further. My sense of uncertainty is my inner wisdom telling me to bring illuminations to my situation, to allow insights to rise and guide me before I take my next step. Questioning is good. I will look carefully to see if a different path may be right for me at this point. So maybe this is where they want you to be now. Instead of worrying now about what happened before in regards to your family, they're no longer in your energy. And the only time that they become in your energy is when you choose them to be there. They want you now to see a new path, to see a new way, because the old is shedding, the old is disappearing. They want you to see how this destroyed you in the past, how everything led you to feel so lost, but they also want to remind you of how much that you have learnt along the way, and that there is always a new path and there is always a new way. This is about you working on your craft. Maybe you've been putting something off, and maybe you've been thinking that you're not good enough. Maybe the old cycle of what ifs and what they've said and so on and so forth has been keeping you trapped for so long, that this is what they want to remind you of. It's okay to stop, pause. Remind yourself how far you've come on this journey, and that you're no longer part of the same scenario that you was before. You learn to balance. You are the one that is bringing in balance. You are the one that's here to weave a new story. You know, you are being guided. This is the reason that you come up as the thorn, because a rose is so beautiful. A rose is so beautiful. But the best thing about a rose is that when you go to pick the rose, because the rose should always be left where it is, when you go to pick the rose, it has thorns that you know, and this is what they want to remind you of. You know, you're like the rose. You're so truly beautiful, but you need to stand in your ground and remind yourself how far you've come. and not to be sucked back into all the sob story when they come and apologise. It's always good to give grace and be kind and everything, but to also remember your journey. To send love, to send wisdom to the family, to whoever it is to you. But they want you to expand. For all the extremes that you've gone through, you know that you are more than capable, and this is the massive message here. You know you're more than capable. You have gone through fields of roses, and you got to the other side unscathed. Maybe a bit cut here and there, maybe a bit bruised, you know. Maybe it were a bit puffy and panty. Maybe it could, you know, it wasn't the best to get there, but you got there to the other side. Just give grace, because your ancestors are wanting you to remember where you came from. And they're all watching over you and they're all guiding you. But they want you to now focus on who you are, where you came from and what you're here for. You're here to speak your truth. You're here to not be allowed for the roots, because like I said, the roots are surrounding all of this pentacle, which is keeping that pentacle held still there. And then you've got the family with the roots. This is where you expand through extremes. Because if you go through a form field, you can get through the roots. Get back to what you was always here to do. You just have to remind yourself how powerful and strong that you truly are. With boundaries now. You now have boundaries. You're the one came to balance. You're here to birth a new story. And you and your children are so important. You know, what you do from here on out is so important, because you know that you can protect them and you know that you are safe. And the knowledge that you've gained, the wisdom, everything that you've been learning, you are now going to build your new life with, to leave a legacy for your family. You are here to heal the wounds. And you've been doing so amazingly, and they're so proud of you. I hope this resonated with you. Remember, you are the mystic rose, whether male or female. You're here to birth a new creation. You're here to march forward. Who do you truly want to become? Go into nature, because that's where your roots will be connected the most. Ask your ancestors. Ask them to guide you. You've got this, and they're really, really proud of you. I hope this message helped. Thank you. Take care. Bye.